This is what Jesus says. He says, I will not talk with you much more, for the prince, the evil genius, the rulers, the amplified version of the world is coming, and he has no claim on me. Common with me, there is nothing in me that belongs to him, and he has no power over me. So he's saying there's nothing in me, even though I got the same shell as everybody else. He's not looking for something on me, but he's looking for something in me to identify. And one translation says he's looking for something in you to help him. Because many times you assist the enemy in your own destruction because he finds something in you that he can identify with. But when he looks at Jesus' flesh, he thinks he's like other men. But you understand that Jesus was tempted on every hand, but he was without sin. So when Satan comes to try him, he can find nothing in him. I look down your road and say, can Satan find anything in you? I know you dressed up today. I know you got your cologne on. I know you got your three-piece suit on. But can Satan find anything in you? Is it something he's using in you to help him? Is it something? Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's something you put in the closet. But it's something in you that the enemy will use to destroy you. He's looking for that lust, that insecurity in you to destroy you. Because he's looking for something to identify with. He was trying to identify with Jesus' physical hunger. But Jesus had a spiritual hunger that was greater than his physical hunger. That's why he responds. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Because he understood, if I'm going to beat the enemy, he can't have anything in me to identify with. Now you have to understand this. Jesus had the same struggles. He had the same battles because he's God in flesh. Your biggest problem is your flesh. That's why when God puts you in your perfected body and you no longer have flesh, you'll no longer have the proclivity to sin or reap the results of sin. Watch this. You remember the story that we read during Easter time when we talk about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane? Now, he's really struggling because any other time it would be a no-brainer to do the will of God. But now that he has some flesh, it's a struggle because the cross is not designed to deal with your spirit. That's why he said, I commend my spirit to you. But what the cross will challenge is your flesh. He wasn't wounded in the spirit for our transgressions. He wasn't bruised for our iniquities in the spirit for our transgressions. No, he did all that through his flesh. And by his flesh, we are. Pause. Your will, my will. Both of them are God. But it seems like they're not on the same page. This ain't John saying, nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. This ain't Peter saying, not my will, but your will be done. This is part of the Godhead saying, not my will, but your will be done. This is a second of the Trinity saying, not my will, but your will be done. But my conclusion or my suggestion or what I submit to you on today is that the reason Jesus had another will is because Jesus had something the Father didn't have, flesh. That's why he even looks at the disciples. He's not trying to rebuke them when he says the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He's identifying with them. Because before that, he didn't know that. He couldn't experience that sometimes your spirit and your flesh will have a struggle. He's seen it all throughout humanity, but this is the first time he experiences that when my spirit wants to do one thing, my flesh wants to do another. And so I'm struggling because I'm wrapped in flesh for the first time. Before, I've never afraid of anything, because who is like the Lord? Nobody. I even told you, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. But now that I'm in the flesh, I got to struggle. So he says, my spirit is willing, but my flesh is weak. My flesh wants to avoid this suffering, because they're going to put the crown of thorns in my flesh. See, that's where we are. Some of us are even in some struggles and some addictions, because you know your spirit says, leave that boy alone. But if you leave that boy alone, then your flesh is going to suffer. And even though I know my spirit man is telling me it's wrong, I'm giving in to my flesh. So Jesus shows us how to handle what's been mishandled. He doesn't just want us to hear say, he demonstrates his love. He demonstrates how you handle yourself when your spirit is willing, but your flesh is weak. He says, listen, nevertheless, because when you follow God, it's nevertheless, it's always the more. And some people today are in bondage, not because of the devil, but because of your flesh. Or let me preach to somebody, because somebody thinks that you're the only one struggling with flesh. I know I'm dressed up. I know I got a title. I know I'm the pastor, but I got flesh as sure as my name is Pastor O. And you got to learn how to deal with your flesh. That's why I can't handle a whole lot of excuses, because God can't forgive excuses. He just can forgive sin. We all have flesh, and we all have the proclivity to sin. So the Bible says, I was given a thorn in my flesh. Now, do you think the enemy wants to keep you from becoming proud? No. He says, I was given a thorn in my flesh, not in my spirit, a messenger from Satan to torment me and keep me from becoming proud. A thorn is anything designed by God to assist you and I in coping with our flesh. But God says, Paul, I know you're not in your perfected body yet, and you have some flesh. So this thorn in your flesh is not the enemy, it's me. But the thorn keeps you from depending on yourself to depending on me. So many of you, the thing you are complaining about is sent by God. Because if he ever removed the thorn is the thing that keeps you stabilized. That's why every time you get a job, you don't come to church. But every time you're looking for employment, you at Bible study, you at Sunday. So he has to keep that thorn of unemployment in your life so you will learn how to be faithful. Some of you, your thorn of singleness is God's thorn to keep your flesh down. Because every time you get in a relationship, you forget your address and you stay over his house. So he has to keep you single to keep your flesh under control. Don't you be deceived that just because I smell good, I'm in perfect health. No, I got a thorn in my flesh. If I was in perfect health, you probably couldn't find me. But since I'm struggling in my body, I press my way to church, and the thorn is what stabilized me. There are some single parents that when your husband walked out, it was the thorn that stabilized you. You never prayed as much. You never fasted as much. You never believed God as much. But it was that thorn in your flesh. Yes, it hurts, but it keeps me stable. Yes, I don't like it, but it keeps me grounded. I dare to give God praise for the thorn in your life. I need somebody to stop acting like you're perfect, like you don't have no issues in your flesh. But it's that thorn in your flesh that is working together for your good. It's that thorn in your flesh that God is using to make you more like Jesus Christ.